biased media coverage, if let's be very clear, honest about it. But XRP, as I have been studying about it, it is very clear that Ripple is building a sustainable model when it comes to XRP. It's very, very clear, and when I was studying, I could figure it out. Could you explain to us as to how, what are the problems XRP is exactly trying to solve? Are you guys planning to any awareness program or anything to gain popularity basically about XRP? Is there anything planned?
Sure, I guess I can first touch on the problem we're trying to solve. And, you know, I'll give you an example. I moved to Dubai about a year ago and needed to send money from my UK bank account to my AED account. So quite a simple process, I thought, went on my online banking system, executed the payment, you know, thinking, okay, I'll be there in a couple of hours, maybe a day. 3 days later, I'm like, okay, where are the funds? You know, I've got my landlord chasing me to pay him for my rent. You know, what do I do here? Contact my bank. And all they could tell me is the funds have been sent. And I'm like, that's not very helpful. You know, you know, how do I, whereabouts is it? Has it been received by my bank here? And they were like, no, it hasn't been received yet. So the actual quickest way for me at that point to bring money into Dubai would have been for me to get a flight back to London, go to my bank, withdraw cash, travel back, and hand deliver that money. Now that just doesn't serve the needs of the people today, right? So, you know, if you could imagine, I could send an email to anyone in this room and within a couple of seconds, you're going to receive that. But when it comes to moving money, you know, it goes into a black hole and nobody knows, right? So Ripple's vision really is to move money and value like information moves today. And we believe XRP kind of is the bridging asset for payments that does that. Of course, there's others in the ecosystem that will also, you know, be specialized in that. But from a Ripple perspective, that's kind of what we focus on. When you mentioned about kind of, I guess, the education piece, right? So, you know, there's a big, I guess, XRP developer program kind of that Ripple drives, right? We want people building on the ledger, not just Ripple, but other technology companies, because it's open source and public and a public blockchain. And we want to be able to be in a position where we can educate people more on the benefits of that. So absolutely more to come in that space. Regionally, something that we want to do more across the Middle East. It's quite big in other geographical locations, but yeah, watch this space. Something will be coming there for sure.
Right. For those of you who don't know, Ripple is having a lot of UAE brands that they're working with. Would you like to share some insight on that as to which are the top brands you're working with and how are you easing their pain points through your payment solution? Could you throw some light on it?
Yeah, so, you know, as I mentioned, we've been in operation here for a few years now, and the original kind of product that we launched, which, you know, was on blockchain but not utilizing XRP, got a ton of interest here, right? What we found is, certainly over the last 12 months, you know, regulators are really kind of moving fast here and actually creating a framework that allows innovation across the industry. So we were able to launch on-demand liquidity, which is, you know, our product, which, you know, as I mentioned, uses XRP to move funds cross-border. And we launched with a partner called People. So they are a mobile payment provider who serve, you know, 1 billion of the, you know, unbanked people, right? People who need it the most to move funds cross-border. They launched last year into many countries globally. And we have a number of partners that I can't mention today that will be looking to really kind of leverage our technology and utilize crypto, more importantly. And really that's been made possible by the regulators kind of, you know, looking to understand, looking to learn, and create a safe framework for businesses to operate in, which has been really, from the regional perspective, been really, really, really great.
Right. Reece, I have figured out that in the region, the top 3 markets are UAE, Saudi, and Egypt. Would you like to comment a few lines on them, that how these 3 you know, countries are really trying to be at the forefront of progressive policies? And obviously the others would follow. But few lines from you as to how UAE is at the forefront of all this.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you know, those 3 regions from a cross-border and remittance perspective, obviously, the largest, in the world there. So, for us, it's a huge priority. As I mentioned, the UAE, there are, some good frameworks around that have allowed businesses to progress and certainly implement crypto as a strategy. I think Saudi and Egypt, they're moving along. And, from a Ripple perspective, one thing that we always do is we want to engage with regulators. We want to educate, we want to work with our bank partners in the region to essentially allow a path forward. So whilst we haven't launched into these regions yet, I think there's a little bit more time to come, but it's well on the way. We'll be certainly looking to kind of power our technology into these regions as well.
Great. I'm okay if you don't want to break down in numbers, but would you like to share with us as to which are the sectors where XRP adoption is high, globally as well as regionally? If you could give us a little insight on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So primarily when we launched on demand liquidity, we were looking at the remittance market. And for many reasons, right? We want to improve the cost, the speed, and efficiency for those who are looking to remit funds home, because obviously, smaller clip sizes. You don't want to get all your, if you're sending $100 home for someone to get groceries in the Philippines, you don't want to be paying, 10, 15% getting chewed up in fees, right? So that was primarily our use case to do that. We're on a run rate of $15 billion a year now in terms of actually payment companies utilizing XRP within their payment flow to move funds cross-border. And that has we've increased 8x from 2021. So it's certainly, the adoption's there, the interest there, and, we're looking forward to the next 12 months for sure.
That's wonderful. So did COVID catalyze the adoption of XRP, and what kind of insights would you share you're expecting in 2022? If you had an 8x growth over 2021, I'm okay with you not dropping numbers, don't worry, but what kind of growth are you expecting? Since I believe COVID would have definitely catalyzed digital adoption. So did it contribute to XRP's popularity?
I think it contributed to Ripple being able to engage with partners where suddenly they needed to be more focused on the costs of their business. We also saw, if you look at some of the markets like the Philippines, for example, which we were focused on as an initial corridor, the majority of people there will collect cash from kiosks on the other side, right? When those kiosks are shut, there needs to be other and alternative methods for them to be able to receive money. So we saw a huge uptick, and actually, I guess, bank transfers versus cash pickup in these regions. And businesses looking to really kind of double down on the costs, because it was a tough time, COVID, right? We all kind of, have adapted very well, and actually from an industry, it allowed us to thrive and really move things along. If you look at some of the large banks and players who are very rigid in their approach, suddenly, it's, hey, you got to change kind of how you approach things, or you're going to get left behind. Some still will, right? But some are taking action and looking to kind of, move forward. 4 years ago when I joined Ripple, if I would have, I engaged with a lot of banks, if I mentioned the word crypto, very quickly I could see people, looking for security, get this man off the premises. We fast forward now, and essentially, because we've been in the industry for so long, banks are reaching out because now they want to understand, right? How, what's their strategy? How can they implement this? And it could be from custody, it could be for payments, it could be, even Metaverse, everything that they're looking to do. Suddenly they want to kind of catch up there now.
Is Ripple working with certain Metaverse projects here in the UAE, or are you open to? Is Ripple working with certain Metaverse projects for the UAE, or are you open to working in?
I think we're fairly focused on kind of our use cases when it comes to, payments. What I would say is we're engaged on CBDCs with governments. We're looking at the NFT market more broadly, as well as, building Metaverse and NFT plays on the XRP ledger. So is there something currently in the Middle East? No. Are we open to it? Absolutely.
Right. And the last question from my side, where do you, of course, so you said just now it's all about payment. So I want to know which sectors do you see the highest adoption now? Could be retail, e-commerce, tourism, more which are B2C kind of a thing. But do you see the ratio between B2B and B2C? Where do you think the XRP adoption will be higher?
You know, I think it's interesting. When I started, we were just looking at banks. So we were just looking at, hey, a bank moving funds from A to B, US to UK. That was our primary focus. Right. Then we looked at payment providers, right? So looking at, because they're far more nimble. They have the same, you know, friction points in terms of moving funds cross-border, but actually they can implement and adopt within kind of a few weeks. Now we're looking at kind of, I guess, non-licensed FIs, so corporates, large corporates who ultimately still have the same, you know, requirements in terms of moving funds cross-border. That could be for imports, exports, or just running their global businesses now. We all are a lot more global, right? So we're far more kind of, I guess, broader in our approach. We still want it to be focused, so we don't want to have too much of a scattergun approach. We want to really target the customers that we believe, you know, have the requirements that we can help. And, you know, there's probably more sectors that we'll target, but corporate, banks, and payment providers has kind of been our core kind of, you know, where we've seen the most growth there.
Right. Thank you so much for those wonderful responses and answers. Once again, we would like to thank the audience to participate in this fireside chat. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Beautiful speech, beautiful questions.